Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, I'm Ange, and today's video is going to be my January wrap-up. So today is only January 30th. I have one more day left of January, but I wanted to sit down and go through all the books that I read through January because January was an awesome month for me. I read a total of 7 books and slightly kind of read parts of another book, which I will mention as well. The very first book that I read this month was Restless Slumber by KJ Sutton. This is the second book in the Fortuna Sworn series, and boy, it ripped my heart out. If you've been following me, you know that Fortuna Sworn is one of my all-time favorite series now, and I'm not really going to get into detail about this specific book, but the series is about a nightmare named Fortuna who goes looking for her brother who went missing 2 years ago. She meets a dark fairy and makes a deal with him to find her brother. This is a dark fantasy romance, and it is very dark. There is violence, there is sexual assault, so just bear that in mind if you do happen to look into this series. Deadly Dreams is the next book in this series that comes out in February, and I have it pre-ordered, so I cannot wait to read the third book in this series. This was definitely a heartbreaker. This was one of the books that I had for my January Bookopoly. This fell under the fantasy romance category. The second book that I read was The Shadow Cadets of Pennyroyal Academy by M.A. Larson. This is the second book in the Pennyroyal Academy series. Also really love this series. It's very innocent. It's a middle grade style reading. So great. Essentially, the Pennyroyal Academy is this magical school where girls go to learn to be princesses who are there to battle witches, and boys go to become knights who will fight dragons. So we get to follow the main character, Evie, as she goes through the schools, years 1, 2, and 3, and all the little adventures that her and her friends have, and ultimately their goal to drive out the witches from the entire realm. Absolutely love this series. It's full of familiar fairy tale names, characters. It's lighthearted, it's fun. There is a hint of teenage romance. It is a phenomenal read. I highly recommend checking that out if you're into fairy tales. This book was my visit the library category from my Bookopoly. All right, moving on. The third book that I read was From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Wow. Okay, I seriously loved it so stinking much. The beginning of it kind of dragged a little bit, but once you started to get more into the story and into the action, it was so good. This book does contain a lot of violence and sort of gory violence, so if that's not your thing, definitely turn away. There's also a lot of sex in the book as well. And not just sex, but detailed. This book is about this maiden named Poppy, who lives in the kingdom of the Ascended. So these people reach a certain age and they will be ascended and are given to the gods. So Poppy is a special case because she is the maiden, she is pure. She was chosen by the gods. So she is kind of supposed to be this dainty, sheltered maiden. She's not. She is an awesome female character. She fights, she is strong, she is tough, she is vulnerable. She is technically a maiden, but things start to change when one of her royal bodyguards is killed and a new guard takes his place. His name is Hawk, and a lot of things begin to unravel. And there are two major kingdoms in this series. There are the Ascended and then there are the Atlanteans. There are also a lot of different creatures. There are Wolven, which are sort of just shapeshifter wolves. There are also shapeshifters, which can be more than just wolves, so they're different. There are also these things called Craven, which were created by one of the kingdoms and are sort of these ravagey, savagey people. It's kind of hard to explain them, but they just are bloodlusters. There's also some kind of like vampire-esque people. So there's a lot of different fantasy creatures within this. Oh my goodness, great, great, great series. This was my Goodreads recommended book for Bookopoly, and I'm glad that it was. Moving on. The fourth book that I read was The Dating Plan by Sara Desai. Sara Desai, I'm sorry, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. This was my January book of the month book, and it was really hard to go from Blood and Ash to this book just because they're completely different. Like, this is a romance, and From Blood and Ash was hardcore fantasy and just a little darker. This was very lighthearted and very cheesy. So I had to kind of disassociate myself from that. But once I did, this was a fantastic book. This is about two people who knew each other their whole lives. There's a guy named Liam and a woman named Daisy. Liam stood Daisy up at her senior prom, and they didn't hear from him for 10 years. And 10 years later, they bump into each other at a conference, and things kind of get crazy from there. They immediately create this engagement between them. Daisy wants her matchmaking ants off of her back, and Liam wants to be able to save his grandfather's distillery that's been in the family for 300 years. So they create this plan to be engaged and kind of get married with no feelings involved. However, it's a cheesy rom-com book, basically. They fall in love. It's just really fun to see them go through this dating plan and like kind of getting to know each other and really rekindling and finally overcoming what happened and revealing the truth about what happened at her senior prom. If you like cheesy rom-coms, this was really good. The fifth book, guys, is In a Holidaze by Christina Lauren, and this is actually a two-person author. They collabed and created this book. I so enjoyed this book. I wish I would have read it around Christmas time. This was my December book of the month, but it did not come until the very end of December. This was so good. If you love Hallmark Christmas movies, this is perfect. So this is about families who every single year go to this cabin that is owned by one of the families, and they spend the week of Christmas together. And they have traditions and just love being together and spending time together. At the end of this trip, the family who owns it reveals that they are planning on selling the cabin. The main character's name is May, and on their way to the airport, they get hit by a car, and May finds herself on the airplane flying to the cabin at the beginning of the week. So she gets caught in like a time loop and has to relive and figure out the purpose of this time loop for her. And I really, really enjoyed this. I loved the characters a whole lot. She has been in love with this character named Andrew for, I don't even know, since she was 13 years old. One thing I will say about this is the characters in this book are like 26 and 30, 27 and 30. The main character is 26 and the guy that she's in love with is 30, and I think one of the other main characters is about 26 probably as well. And it just didn't feel like 26-year-olds and 30-year-olds would be living this kind of life. So I feel like this would have worked a little bit better if they'd been more like my age or a little bit younger, about 23, 24. Regardless of that, I loved it. I loved it a lot. It was so cozy and Christmassy and snowy and just like, it was just really good. And even though you had to relive the days a couple times, it was still good every time. So I very much enjoyed this, and this will probably be my Christmas book that I read every year as I cozy up by the Christmas tree and eat cookies and drink some hot tea. It's gonna be fantastic. The next book. So I wasn't planning on reading anymore. I don't know why. I had a full week of January left, but I wasn't really planning on reading a book. And so I actually ended up reading a little bit of this one. It's called Take Care of Your Type by Christina Wilcox. This is an Enneagram guide to self-care, and I'm an Enneagram type 4. I really love learning about the Enneagram, so I read my chapter and then I read my husband's chapter, which he is a type 3. And then I've started reading a type 2, which is my sister-in-law, who's also obsessed with the Enneagram, and I also got her this book for Christmas. So then I'm gonna go to Enneagram type 1, which is one of my other sisters, and then Enneagram type 9, which is one of my other sisters and a lot of my friends. And then I'll hit up Enneagram 7, which is another one of my friend. And then I will probably do the rest whenever. But this is just a fun little guide to self-care if you're interested in that, and if you're interested in the Enneagram, I would check it out. The graphics in here are so stinking cute. This is like the beginning of each type, and there's just cute little details in each chapter. So I really enjoyed this book. It's fun to just pick up if I don't have a book to read. Okay, once I decided that I was actually going to read a book, I decided to read A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. And I'm so glad I did, because my February Bookopoly does not have any fantasy in it. So I was like, I have to read this ASAP. Oh my goodness. This is the second book in the From Blood and Ash series, and I did not think this book could top the first one, but it blew it out of the water. Oh my gosh. The storyline pacing was rather slow, but the pacing of this book was so quick. Like, I did not want to put it down. I just kept reading. There weren't any parts that really lagged for me, and I just felt myself drawn in and just kept wanting to read and read and read. Like, I read 325 pages of this book in one day. That is like a whole book within itself in one day. So I could not put it down. It was so good. You got a lot of answers, but then you were left with so many more questions. Oh my gosh, it was so good. The third and final book doesn't come out until April, so I am going to be sitting here just waiting until that book comes out, because I want to read it so stinking bad. This is also one of my newest favorite series, and honestly, I just want to read this whole series again because it's that good. And the ending of this book in particular, like the last chapter, that last scene just leaves you mind blown. I can't even begin to describe how incredible it was. I have so many questions about this book. Oh my gosh, you guys, this was a phenomenal book. Phenomenal. Oh my goodness. Okay, I can't talk more about it. I'm sorry. Okay, and on to the final book of the month, which I'm currently reading, and I will have it done by tomorrow to finish off January, is The Warrior Princess of Pennyroyal Academy, and this is the final book in the series. The second book left us with a lot of questions. Like, each book kind of left us with questions because it was revealing some truths about the main character that we didn't know, but it just kept you wanting to find out more about her. And the second book definitely left with more questions, and I'm very interested in seeing how this book is gonna go, because it's not going how I thought it would at all. It is so good so far. I love the characters. It's so lighthearted, it's so innocent, and I really do love the characters. I love the princesses. I love the familiar names. We get the names of Cinderella. We get the names of Snow White. We actually get Red Riding Hood, but like not her story. It's just her. There's some great names. There's a Rumpled Shirt Sleeves, and he is like the costume creator of the academy, and I freaking love him. We get some knights like Remington, who is amazing. We get witches, we get dragons, we get giants, and it's just so good. I highly suggest this series. I got my sister started on them, and she and I are both currently reading this book right now, so it's been fun. I've been texting her like nonstop. Oh my gosh, because she's faster reader than I am, and so she's ahead of me at this moment, which is sad, but I keep texting her. I'm like, what's happening, and it's fun. But anyway, guys, that has been my January. It has been phenomenal. I cannot wait to see if any months top this, because honestly, this has been a fantastic month of reading. The books have all been on their A game. It's been amazing, and I cannot wait to see what the rest of the months of this year have. I know that I had said that my reading goal is going to be 36. I bumped that to 50 because I'm already at 7 on Goodreads, so I think 36 is going to be too easy of a goal at this point if I continue being like this. So I bumped it up to 50, so now I'm like super excited. Okay, I feel like I've been talking nonstop forever. That's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please comment below if you've read any of these books, if any of them are on your TBR. Let me know the books, how many of you read in January already. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!